And he came up with like incredible, ludicrous things, you know, like he said that I could protest but not with those. And he's pointing at my picket signs like, oh, I'm not allowed to have picket signs at a protest? Are you serious? You know, he said, you know, so I said, well, you know, I mean, if you want, I can go get a megaphone and shout slogans with a megaphone if you prefer, just to make a point. And oh no, you can't do that either. You know, it's illegal, you know, to make noise, blah blah blah. You know. And so he suggested I get a T-shirt. The guy actually suggested, well, you can protest if you get a T-shirt that says what you want to see. And of course, this was the summer. Oh, that Jeremy Searle coming along? I think it might be. Oh no, it's not. Thought it might be Jeremy Searle showing up. Similar hairstyle from a distance. But always have some interesting chats with Jeremy on the rare occasions he shows up. So, getting back to the police, you know, the guy or whoever, it might have been a woman driving for all I know, in the car that just passed, you know, they just had a look, drove by. You know, it may not have even been related to this protest. It might have been just a routine drive-by, but there was another drive-by a week ago where the police did seem to be watching from the corner there for a bit and then drove by. But essentially, I just described, you know, a couple of occasions where the police behaved stupidly, to borrow a phrase from U.S. President Barack Obama, who used the same or similar phrase to describe some police work in the Boston area that I thought was actually fairly reasonable, but in his mind was, you know, the police had acted stupidly in arresting someone. Nonetheless, I think I can safely say that the SPVM officers, whose actions I just described, acted stupidly and certainly didn't respect my right to engage in peaceful public protest. So there was one other occasion in the spring of 2013, which a couple of female police officers showed up, and it was the same story. You know, you have to leave, you gotta go. And when I asked why, they accused me of blocking the sidewalk, you know, blocking circulation on the sidewalk. And as you can see, you know, I do not block circulation on the sidewalk. People pass. In fact, you know, as I pointed out to them in our discussion, because I stepped back and I was sort of, basically I was where these bushes are, just in front of those bushes, standing about here facing the officers. And as you can see, there's, you know, lots of sidewalk there. And of course, you know, the one talking to me was in front of me on the sidewalk, and as a result of her, excuse me, blocking the sidewalk, because she was talking to me, people were stepping in the street and going around her. So it's kind of ironic that these police officers who insisted I had to disperse on the pretext that I was blocking the sidewalk were actually blocking the sidewalk more than I was. And so we had a nice little philosophical discussion about that. The police officer who I was speaking with the most objected to the fact that I was using the familiar tu instead of vous. You know, she thought I was being impolite in addressing her as tu instead of vous. So she piped up and said, "C'est la police, vous tutoyez pas la police." Not sure if she properly said "vous ne tutoyez pas la police" or she just said "vous tutoyez pas la police" in somewhat bad French herself. I got a feeling she actually said "vous tutoyez pas la police" and dropped the "ne," so I could quibble with her French as well. But nonetheless, you know, they didn't like the fact that I was standing up for myself and threatened to give me a ticket. You know, in fact, her partner said it would be a great pleasure for her to give me a ticket in French. I can't remember exact words. Je pense que, you know, I think she said, ça me donnerait du plaisir à te donner une bonne amende. You know, so it would give me pleasure to give you a nice big fine, you know. So I stuck to my guns and said, well, fine, you know, if you want to give me a ticket. Well, you go right ahead and I'll contest it and we'll see what the judge says, you know. And so they decided that they would watch me protest for a while. They also said, you know, you can't step into the street, you know, to make room for people. They're basically doing everything they could to make things difficult, making it, you know, putting stringent, what's the word I'm looking for, conditions on my protest. You know, you can't step off the sidewalk to allow people to pass, and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, joggers are running by in the street, no problem. And I pointed that out to them. I said, well, you know, what about these joggers? You know, I mean, if I can't step off the sidewalk to make room for someone to pass, well, you're going to give me a ticket for that. Well, maybe you should be ticketing these joggers that are running by, you know, in the middle of the road. But of course, well, that's different, of course. So they went on the other side of the street where about that dark colored car is and watched me for some minutes, you know, hoping to see something that would give them some pretext for giving me a ticket. And when a jogger ran by in the street, I pointed to the jogger and said, hey, there you go, there's someone to give a ticket to. And soon after that, they took off. So those are 3 occasions where the police basically displayed very little respect for my good day. Very good, excellent. Basking in the glory of being accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. Oh. Unique honor and privilege, that. Not many people get to be accused of blasphemy by Unitarians.
It's an honor.
I think so, yeah, and a privilege. It's a privilege too, yeah. Yeah.
Nice camera.
Thank you, yeah.
Hi.
So, somebody is agreeing with me that it's an honor to be accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. And it is. And I should add, I do believe this person's a member of the church, perhaps not. So, yeah, it definitely knows people from the church anyway. I've seen her face before, so I have a feeling she's, perhaps was a member of the church. Maybe she got fed up with the church for various reasons, or maybe not. But yes, you know, it is, as I say, a unique honor and privilege to be accused of the criminal act of blasphemous libel by Unitarian Universalists. So yeah, it looks like she's heading off after letting people off. So, so did you do any research yet? No answer. The woman in red saw my picket signs last Sunday, and she was staring at them with this look of perplexion on her face. You know, like she couldn't believe what she was reading. And so I said, yeah, it is kind of hard to believe, isn't it? She says, I don't believe it. And so I said, well, are you a member of the church? And she said, well, I'm considering it. So she's not an actual member of the church, but she's considering joining. Well, one of the principles of Unitarian Universalism is the 4th principle, which calls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, which, if you apply that to this situation, would suggest that Unitarian Universalists have something of a moral obligation to engage in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of what's written on my picket signs, and then as part of that engage in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning, or glaring lack thereof, of what's in the arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letters that UUA leaders hired Stikeman Elliott, barristers and solicitors litigation lawyer, Maitre Marc-André Coulombe, to have me served with, in which, amongst other things, I'm accused of the criminal act of blasphemous libel for allegedly making unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the Unitarian Universalist Association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape, and, you know, find out what the truth is You know, it's all very well to not believe what's on my picket sign. The woman has a right not to believe it initially just because I'm saying it. Just as I have a right not to believe the bullshit in the cease and desist demand letters that the UUA had me served with. But this woman, if she wants to be a proper Unitarian Universalist, living up to the claimed principles and purposes of the Church, needs to engage in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of what's on my picket sign. She can't just not believe it because she chooses not to believe it. She has to find out how much truth is in my picket signs, you know, and if she does...
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very good. Basking in the glory of being accused of blasphemy by Unitarians. Doesn't get much better than that. So, somebody asked me how I am this morning, and so if it's a member of the church, or even not, you know, even if it's a member of the public, one of my standard responses is basking in the glory of being accused of blasphemy by Unitarians, because it really is a unique honor and privilege. And, you know, it's, you know, extremely rare for anyone to be accused of blasphemy, you know, in a legal sense, you know, like actually have some blasphemy law cited in legal action against them, or threaten legal action against them. You know, it's a very rare thing in North America. There's probably only a handful of people in the 21st century that can claim that unique, or not unique, but rare honor and privilege. But it is especially unusual that you know, the Unitarian Universalist religious community would do such a thing. It's especially bizarre, and yes, immoral, unethical, batshit crazy, for the Unitarian Universalist religious community to accuse anyone of blasphemous libel for any reason whatsoever, because traditionally Unitarians or Universalists have been the victims of blasphemy law in the past. You know, they've been the ones